Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a field of study that puts forward a pretty radical idea, that you can't really understand a story without understanding the culture that made it. We're talking about African American criticism, and believe me, it doesn't just change what you read, it completely changes how you read.
So let's start with a basic question. How do we read a story? Seems simple, right? You just open the book and you read the words on the page. But the meaning we pull from those words, the story we actually walk away with, well, that's not always so straightforward. It really all depends on the perspective you bring with you. The best way to think about it is like this. Every method of literary analysis is like putting on a different pair of glasses, a different lens. A Marxist lens, for example, is going to make you focus on class struggle. A feminist lens will highlight the gender dynamics. Well, today we're picking up a lens that shows us dimensions of American literature that honestly have often been hiding in plain sight.
So, let's dive in. Section 1, a new critical lens. And this lens is African American literary criticism. It offers just a profound way to understand the really intricate relationship between race, culture, and storytelling in America.
So what is it exactly? Well, at its core, this is a major school of thought that looks at how the Black experience in America, we're talking its history, its politics, its psychology, its culture, how all of that shapes a piece of literature. The whole argument is that you just can't separate the art from the experience that created it.
Now here's what's so cool about it. It kind of plays a dual role. On one hand, yeah, it's a subject. It's the deep, rich study of works by Black authors. But, and this is the key, it's also a framework. It's a tool, a method you can use to analyze any book that deals with African American issues, and it doesn't matter who the author is.
Okay, so on to Section 2, Themes and Traditions. If you're looking through this lens, what do you actually see? What specific ideas and styles start to pop out?
Well, once you apply this lens, these incredibly powerful themes, all of them rooted in Black American history, they just start to emerge. Think about the quest for freedom. That's not some abstract idea. It is the literal driving force of countless slave narratives and epic novels like Toni Morrison's Beloved. These aren't just plot points, they're reflections of a huge collective journey.
And absolutely central to all of this is the psychological quest to deal with what W.E.B. Du Bois famously called double consciousness. That's the feeling of always seeing yourself through the eyes of a society that might look down on you. It's this powerful theme of internal conflict, the search for a whole, unified self.
This lens also helps us appreciate a totally distinct artistic style. For instance, critics pay super close attention to something called orality. That's how the writing captures the actual sound and rhythm of Black speech, often called AAVE, and the huge influence of music like blues and jazz. They also spot these recurring folk motifs, like the clever trickster character, that connect these modern stories to a really rich cultural past. So it becomes clear it's not just what's being said, it's how it's being said.
All right, Section 3, the lens of CRT. Now, to make this analysis even sharper, some critics, especially in recent decades, have started using a more structured framework that actually comes from legal studies, critical race theory. So let's take a look at how its key ideas get applied to literature.
Okay, so when it's used as a literary tool, CRT gives critics a few key ideas to work with. First is the idea that racism is an everyday thing, that it shapes a character's reality in ways that are subtle but constant. Second, something called interest convergence can be used to ask why a social change happens in a story. Does it only happen because it also helps the people in power? Third, it looks at how the very idea of race is built or constructed within the world of the novel. And finally, it really prioritizes how characters of color tell and understand their own stories.
And a really crucial concept here is intersectionality. This is the idea that you can't look at race in a vacuum. A person's identity is this complex web of different factors, like their race, their gender, their class, and all these things intersect to create totally unique experiences. So in a book, this helps us understand why a Black female character might face completely different challenges than a Black male character, even in the very same story.
All right, so for our final section, the Africanist presence. We've seen how this lens helps us read literature by and about African Americans, but honestly, its most surprising use might be when we turn it toward the classic American canon, the books written by white authors.
And this is where things get really fascinating. What happens when we start looking for the influence of race in books where Black characters seem like they're barely there, or maybe they're not there at all?
Well, the Nobel laureate Toni Morrison gives us a truly groundbreaking answer with her theory of the Africanist presence. She argues that even when black people aren't the main characters, a constructed idea of blackness, a white conception of it, is always there, kind of haunting American literature.
So what Morrison argues is this Africanist presence often isn't about black people at all. Instead, it works like a symbolic screen, a place where white characters and authors project all their own anxieties about freedom or their fears of chaos and desire. It's a revolutionary idea.
And this table just lays it out so perfectly. You see how the white protagonist's journey, their quest for freedom and individuality, is often defined against this backdrop of the Africanist presence. Their own goodness or heroism gets dialed up by contrast. From this viewpoint, black characters, or even just the idea of blackness, can become these narrative tools that are used to explore the depths of the white protagonist's mind.
So the next time you pick up a book, any book, ask yourself, what am I seeing and what's being kept unseen? Who gets to be the hero of this story and who's just serving as the backdrop? Applying this lens shows us that no story is created in a vacuum, and it leaves us with one last question to chew on. What hidden presence is shaping the stories you love?